Let's take another relationship, children. There are many people who feel that they will never be fulfilled on earth because the essences of parenthood cannot be fulfilled. They're either not married or not likely to have children, so they feel frustrated. It's because they don't know how to live, obviously. Their identity is not in angelic being, the essences, because quite obviously there are children around all over the place. And those essences of parenthood may be exercised if you really want to. I shouldn't say want, if you really need to. Opportunity abounds for the release of those essences. Money. Some people feel that they would be fulfilled if they had lots of money, and they could show their expertise in handling money if they had enough of it to play the stock market, perhaps. The essences of stewardship, of money management, can be released through the welfare check. The way one handles all physical form effectively, efficiently. Fulfillment is in the level of essence, of spirit. Handling that more intense level of substance. The outer levels of substance are less intense, less dense substance. The most intense experiences of life are known when one is consciously engaged in the denser levels of substance. Living, acting, handling those. This is the art of creating heaven. Heaven in all its dimensions is created through handling spiritual essences. And as soon as you become aware of a spiritual essence on the move, then the careful release of those, the fire, which is moving into the earth, and you, like a laser beam, allow it to come precisely into the other levels of substance. And fulfillment will be known. This is how angels actually begin to sound their trumpet in the earth. If I'd read on, you would see that when the angel began to sound the trumpet, all sorts of results occurred in the lower levels of substance. Our crudest awareness of focalizations of spirit, the presence of angels, has always pertained to whatever level of substance our own identity was focused in. Therefore, when we were children, either humanly speaking or spiritually, our experience of focalization was an external control through someone else. And we all know that experience. there's a need to move successfully through the experience of focalization in all the different levels as they appear. Usually there's no need for rebellion. There's a sort of wrong rebellion, which is resistance to the divine design. A naughty child, or rebellious human ego. And then as one comes to the successful filling of the vessel with substance at a certain level, one naturally feels that that kind of control, external perhaps, is no longer quite fitting. One senses one has generated finer substance which transcends that level. And so the old patterns of focalization, yes sir, no sir, don't feel quite right. And therefore, there's a change. Now, there's no need to feel rebellious about it just because there's change. One naturally explores in a creative spirit what the new patterns of interaction are. There's no need to be rebellious and nasty about it. The crude experience is the teenage thing. Well, spiritually, we know the same sort of machinations go on. So all I'll say about this is let's be more graceful in our awareness of what's going on. As the angels do appear in the heaven and sound the trumpet, there has to be, for a creative experience, response to that. In one sense, the angel doesn't care. The angel's always in heaven. It might be said, I am always fulfilled. And I'll speak for, hopefully, I know I speak for all the angels present. This relates to Martin's service on the weekend, too. But as the angel actually appears on earth, in heaven on earth, the angel doesn't try to impose control. There's no need. You might say the human consciousness's experience of focalization is being imposed upon by something so-called higher than I am. But coming out of heaven, there's no need to try to exert control over anybody or anything. It's a different process altogether. It's just the presence of the focalized essences with their particular authority. And as that presence manifests more and more intensely through the levels of substance which have been generated in the earthly form, then the radiance does the job. And substance in other people or objects throughout the body of mankind or the planet, as the radiance is present, resonant substance simply responds and finds union in the experience of heaven, union with the Spirit. Any substance which resists or doesn't want to be unified, well, that's fine. It doesn't matter to the angel any. because we know the process is underway. So you might say that the beauty of angelic focalization is that it's all done by love. It's all love. An angel doesn't want anybody to respond or anything to respond. Doesn't want anything, actually. But it is known that union through love is how the law works. It is government by love. As the angelic presence appears, the quality of that and its particular focalization of essences, then that which should be unified simply responds out of love. Anything that doesn't love the point of focus from the angelic standpoint doesn't find union there, and either they're not included in that part of the heaven anyway. Maybe they're orienting somewhere else. That's fine. Doesn't matter. It takes, I think, a lot of the anxiety out of who's responding to me and who isn't. Only a human ego would be bothered by such a thing. From the angelic standpoint, ultimately, everything is unified in love. Ultimately. And that's where we begin to sense our being is. So, as we sound our trumpet out of heaven, then things begin to happen in the earth. And the angel uses these symbolic objects and situations through which to sound the trumpet. It must have a medium. The essence is the power, the fire, needs contact points into the various levels of substance. Thoughts are things. Thoughts are symbols. They should no longer just flit through our minds. Thoughts are objects. Thoughts are things. They are symbols. They are contact points with the whole consciousness of the body of mankind. When an angel thinks, then substance is resonated throughout the whole consciousness of the body of mankind. No sweat. It just is so. There's another aspect to this matter of angelic presence that I'd like to just touch on in closing. If spirit is animating all the earth forms that exist, I think we'd say that, wouldn't we? We would say that spirit is animating all the forms of life which exist throughout the whole cosmos. There's some rather interesting implications to that generalized statement, because we usually, human beings, usually think of the universe as an impersonal machine. You look up in the night sky and you see all these systems, we say. The solar systems, galactic systems. You look out on the surface of the planet and you see all these vegetation systems, etc. It's a very impersonal world that human egos live in, as far as the cosmos goes. They live in the midst of this huge machine. Only they have this intelligence and heart. Everything else is machinery, supporting this consciousness capable of experiencing love. It isn't so. That's the isolated human ego which has come to that pass. The first seal hasn't even been opened in the body of mankind. Well, maybe the first seal, where identity is at the physical, isolated level. But as the subsequent seals are opened, we begin to find that the universe is not an impersonal place. If spirit is love, for example, we interchange those words. Spirit, which is animating everything, it's the Spirit of God. It's love. Well, what is this love? Sort of electricity, which we call love. No. For love to be meaningful, we're talking about an identity, actually. We're talking about identity. Love is meaningless unless it is connected to, it is the essence of identity, of an identity. So that as angels, let's start there, we begin to meet each other as focalizations of love. Listen, I know that I'm a focalization of love. My real self, that my outer consciousness is beginning to know, I know my nature. I love to love. I'm beautiful, I'm noble, I'm honorable. Yes, I am this angel. The outer consciousness begins to be aware of the presence of an identity, the true self, a focalization of love. Now, whether I like it initially or not, when I look out, I see other focalizations of the one spirit of love. It's true of everybody. We know that theoretically. But in experience, we are increasingly capable of knowing communion with the essences of a person, even if they've got some kinky human characteristics that we don't care for much. We can, if the angel is increasingly present, we can disregard that, knowing that's not the eternal part. We can begin to connect with the essences of the angel which is present. Now that in itself opens up a vast new world of communion, actually. If you, as an angel, begin to have such control over your consciousness, your external consciousness in your heart, so that you can begin to forget the garbage which is spotted on various human beings and relate to the angelic presence, well, then we begin to be in a totally different world. But even objects, trees, flowers, or everything actually, are evidence of the presence of an angel who is coordinating that particular aspect of spirit. I'm not saying there's an angel in every flower. I am saying there is a differentiation of an angel in every flower. There is a point of angelic focus, a divine being, whose level of responsibility is to coordinate a creative field which we'll say includes flowers or plants. Say those plants. That is a differentiation of a focus of love. There is an intelligent identity which is actually focalizing, we'll say, a range of plants or any pattern of life form. The angel's identity isn't focused in that form, but the angel's spirit is present through that creative field for which she has responsibility. Now this has implications because there is the possibility of communing. We think we're just communing with nature. People go out and they sense, I sense God. Well, who's God? God are focalizations of angels, divine beings who have particularized responsibilities of focalization in the divine design. There's a whole network of focalization. That opens up a whole level of communion, not just with a flower. You can commune with a flower, there's a differentiation. But actually, increasingly, it is not an unintelligent, unloving universe in which we find ourselves. Coming back to the human nature way of doing things, to illustrate a little more, if you don't like someone, I won't say you, if a human being doesn't like someone, they're quite likely to kick their dog. If someone doesn't like their neighbor, they'll maybe kick the dog, the neighbor's dog, or if they're really nasty, the neighbor's car, put it this way, damage the neighbor's car, you damage the neighbor. Now we, in human nature, do that all the time. You think about it. There are people, we'd say other human egos, but people who we actually don't realize that we are attacking when we criticize their dog. It's not really the dog. It's this person we're getting at. The way their child is a twit, if ever I saw one, ill-mannered, and so on. And when the kid goes by, some ill thought or ill word or something, maybe not even to the child, but over here, we do our dirty stuff over here. There's the person over there, and the differentiation of that person's world is contacted over here. Now that's all I'm saying about the divine design. We have thought ourselves to be in an impersonal universe. Flowers, trees, objects. It isn't that way. We are connected in spirit, in essence, to actual beings. So that when we interact with any symbol, any object, we're not actually merely interacting with that object. That is a contact point with a focus of love, in fact. Here is an opportunity for communion at various levels in love with a particularized focus of love. Heaven is not only vast, it is very personal. And you will find that as you begin to relate, well, at first you don't know what some objects, who the being is that's coordinating a pattern. You don't know who it is. What I've just described is just an outline idea for something to begin. But as you begin to relate to that object, every connection, in the current of love, the essences of one's own being, you will find you are beginning to generate intimacy, spiritual intimacy, in many dimensions, for one thing. But it is communion and the sharing of love, which at first, when you start doing it with objects, just expressing that tone of love, respect, cooperation, releasing the true essences of my being, of love, in this interaction. Although it may be high in the heaven yet, and the outer consciousness is not yet capable of being aware of it, you are in fact communing with another beings. The world, the cosmos, is actually only animated by divine beings. And their radiance is what we have called natural laws. It's not just inanimate power. Yes, unconscious power. It is the radiance of beings. There is no other power except the presence of angelic beings. It's not impersonal. So love, the experience of love, begins to be much more intense, much more varied, and omnipresent. It's a totally different universe than the human consciousness has known. Heaven is full of forms of union in love. And we are here to provide a focus for this recreated consciousness, which experiences this. This is the truth of love. Above all else, we've all longed to love, to know love. As we awaken in heaven,